Good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're just getting started here. Awesome. Hello, John. Hello, Layla, and hello, Tina. John, thank you for joining us again. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate you being here.
Good morning, guys. Good afternoon. Let us know where you are on the planet. We attract people from all over, which we love. Tina, great to see you. Layla, hello, love. So many. That's awesome.
Okay, we're going to actually get started here in just a moment. We'll be starting our intro here and then getting started.
Great to see everyone.
Hello, Elena.
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello. Great to see you guys. Thank you for coming. We'll get started in just a second. This is Elevate Your Commitment.
How about ready when you are, Suzanne?
Sure. Lovely. Guys, where are you at? Put it in the chat, or you can even pop on. We're an intimate group, so we'd love to have real engagement. Tell us where you're at this morning. We've got Wisconsin in the house. New Hampshire, Myrtle Beach. I'm in Florida at the moment, Delaware. East side represent. We're like top to bottom. Michael, where are you at?
I'm just in New Hampshire, so just outside of Manchester.
See? So we are up and down. Very cool.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. I'm going to start some music here so we have a bit of an intro for whenever we record this and publish it. Here we go. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for Elevate Your Commitment today. My name is Michael Dankloss, part of the team that brings you Elevation Mindset. We come together monthly to talk about deep subjects, things like beliefs and faith and grace, values, vision, and today we're talking about commitment. A lot of our agenda today is going to be really talking about what commitment means to us. Now, just like those other words I gave you, faith and grace, they mean different things to different people. So this is our impression of it. Not only talking about sometimes the fear of commitment, but also talking about what happens when we don't follow through on our commitments. And this wide spectrum of what does that word really mean? For me, there's this phrase that comes to mind that I really kind of put into practice. I actually got it as a fortune in a fortune cookie. And that is, a commitment is what makes a promise into reality. And I even had this as a dialogue with my coach at one point is, when you promise to do something, you'll do it. And I'm like, how many broken promises are there out there?
Ooh.
So for me, commitment is key. There's a different level whenever I say that I'm committing to doing something. So I'd like to introduce Suzanne here as well. Would you introduce yourself, please, Suzanne?
Sure. Hi, guys. My name is Suzanne Buchanan. I am a career communications specialist. I'm the senior principal at Carrot Communications, and I have a history of facilitating conversations that matter and bringing people together to take action that impact their lives and the lives of others. So I've done everything from mediation and working on global conflict to helping businesses learn to speak powerfully about what they do and who they came to serve. So it's been a year and a half, Michael, almost, right? About a year and a half ago, we were looking at the hot mess of the world that we saw online with COVID. And we decided that we looked around and there was no one we saw that was stepping forward to have powerful conversations that matter, where we could show up for others, bring our best selves, and have a different kind of dialogue where we're not sending you off into the world with 5 steps to amazingly improve your life overnight, but to have real conversations and connection on the most important personal growth and development topics out there that make us better in every facet of our life. We're here because we believe in you. We're here because we believe we were gifted with enough that we can give. We do this free of charge, and we're so happy to serve you. Michael, you want to talk a little bit about your background real quick?
Absolutely. So my name is Michael Danklos. I am a certified lifebook leader, as well as I'm involved in the lifebook community, as well as I'm a life coach. So I've come through more of an IT background. So there's a little bit of this troubleshooting kind of mindset, but it's really shifted for me over the last 5 years or so of wanting to be of service on a more personal level, rather than working with people's technology, also working with people's mindset. So I really am part of the Elevate Your Best coaching practice, and the founder and principal of that, where commitment is one of the 4 core values of my business. So that's one of the reasons why this is one of the big ones for me. So those 4 principles are preparation, commitment, accountability, and celebration. We'll be talking a little bit about a few of those. So this is one of those things that I'm passionate about. And I wouldn't say that it's something that I've always been passionate about either. It's something that's really kind of came to the forefront just in like the last 5 years or so. So when we really kind of talk about commitment, what comes to mind? If there's something that you think about when commitment is the word that's said, write in the chat for me. Tell me what that word means to you. Because like I opened with, it has different meanings for different people.
For sure. And some of us, we hear the word commitment and we're like, right? Like, some people, it's almost triggering. Some people get excited and they're like, yes, this is how I'm showing up in the world. So when it comes to commitment, what was your first gut reaction? How did you feel? Yes, Layla, something specific that I want badly to achieve. I felt that word badly. Yes, but haven't been able to do it yet. There's that yet, and that unfinished part of commitment, isn't there? It's ongoing. And that alone in itself, right, defines the word. It's something that's ongoing. That's so true. I was connecting with someone else. Oh, yes, Tina, that's right. Honoring your promise to yourself. Not wanting to fail or disappoint. Set your mind and keep it set. Yeah, those are beautiful. And Tina, I love that you went there, honey. We're going to go there today. This will be for you for sure, because there's one influencer I follow that I really love his heart for service. His name is Ed Milet. And he and Tony Robbins and so many others really say that the commitment starts at the promises you keep to yourself. And so many times when we bring up the word commitment, we're thinking of our external orientation, our commitments to others, our time commitment, our commitment to work, to projects. Michael, my co-host and partner in crime, he is notorious for committing to the point where he finds sometimes he's overcommitted. And that's a whole discipline in itself. It's a beautiful thing to want to show up for the universe. But why do you think commitment is so triggering? Where do you think that comes from?
So at least for me, that fear of commitment tends to come from that, fear of if I decide to go this route, I'm going to miss something else. That's one fear that comes up for sure.
FOMO?
Um, yes, very much so. Which is, there's so much information, there's so much to do, there's so much capable out there. We don't live in a village where the farthest we've ever been from where we live most of the time is 5 miles down the road. We actually have access to the world of people and information and projects and hobbies. So if I choose this one thing, if I'm committing to this, then I'm actually not committing to that. That's one. The other is, can I succeed at this? Will I actually get through the other side? The worry of whether this will be completed. Is it done? Is it, am I, as well as, am I going to get value out of it? Is this the right thing to be committing to? So I think that a lot of those come up. And unfortunately, for me as an avoider, that means that I don't commit and I don't get anything done. It gets into this place of analysis paralysis, picking the right thing there. And that leads then to this other place, this anti-commitment space where it's more you're stagnating and either you're going in circles or you're just the shark who's actually stopped swimming.
Yeah, but I think there's something more too, Michael. And we had talked about this a little bit before, because when we feel that squirmy feeling when it comes to the word commitment, I think it's because at heart we know commitment, it reveals so much about who we are. I am a firm believer that every action we take is a commitment in a direction in life. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, our actions are micro steps towards the commitments that we make. And when we look at our lives, when we look at our commitments, it's an ultimate call to accountability. It makes us all ask the question, what is it you're committed to? If we looked at any given day in your life, what are we going to see? And what is the real direction you're heading to? So, we talked a little bit, Michael, about commitment and how commitments reflect values. What are your thoughts on that?
I certainly, as you said, the actions you take is showing a sign of where your commitment is. And if, I've heard some people say is, I want to know what you're committed to, just show me what your calendar is. We can actually see what you're committed to. And if it's empty, are you committed to emptiness? Are you committed to chaos? Are you committed to not heading in a particular direction? But I think it like in the lifebook community, we talk about character traits. And I see that Layla put in here, one of the big ones in there is integrity. Mm-hmm. Integrity for me, is that your thoughts and your words and your actions all align. There's probably beliefs in there somewhere too. But, it really does kind of show, what do you value in your life? Maybe not what some would call your core values, but certainly where you're spending your time is what you've committed to, shows what you value in your life. And it's something that I've talked with quite a few people in the last few years. And it's like, yeah, I played this video game for 5 hours last night. And I'm like, okay, awesome. I hope you got a lot out of that. Is that what you're committed to? I haven't sat down and played a video game in probably 3 years. I used to actually play on my phone all the time. And I'm like, finally, it's like, I got to get rid of this stuff because it doesn't serve me and where I want to go. It doesn't actually fall into that vein of living an intentional life. If you're going to be a professional video game player, awesome, go do that. But if you're 40 and still playing video games for 6 or 8 hours a day, you may want to look at what your commitment is to. and then tell me that you don't have time for your health, for your spiritual practice, for your business.
Absolutely. And I would even, guys, I mean, we may not look like it, but usually Michael is like the sweet, smooth jazz, and I'm like the burn. So, and I would actually say to that person, that is your commitment. And for have them to just think about it, because our actions are our commitments. And if that's one takeaway, of that accountability and self-discipline, Tina, you mentioned that as well. And Elena too, that self-discipline. So now, Michael talked about kind of the external orientation of the projects and things we're committed to. What are you committed to internally? What kind of life are you committed to living? What kind of person are you committed to becoming? And I do use the word becoming because I believe we're all works in progress. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not being there yet.
Well, there's this other part too that, I love the idea of growth. I mean, the name of my business is Elevate Your Best. It's actually moving from here to a higher level. But what I've also found is, are you committed to finding out who you truly are underneath the layers of the things that have been put on top of you, the conditioning from society, from your family, from your spiritual practice, and instead discovering at the core who you are and committing to that rather than committing to what other people think you should be. I use that word intentionally. It's one of my least favorite words in the human language, that you should do something, because that means it's somebody else's commitment for you instead of your commitment for yourself.
Yeah, the word should.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yes. Yes. For the people in the back, shout it out. So for sure. And guys, how many of the commitments in your life now are actually yours? How many commitments are the ones that you have established, or that are the ones expected of you? It's one thing to accept what others expect of you, then you've decided to adopt it as your own. But it's super important at all times to have that self-awareness and that level of reflection that you are able to discern, this isn't mine. Often careers are, people grow up and go to college, or they fall into a career because of their family's expectations. So they marry people who they spend the rest of their lives with, and if these are big life decisions, these affect us in so many ways. So it's so important for us to be cognizant of what those commitments are and where they come from in life. How many of you right now have commitments that you've agreed to or adopted that are not yours? How does that feel, Michael?
Well, to me, it requires a balance, because there are things that I have chosen to have a job. And with that job, there are expectations for me to show up. So yes, those are commitments that I have accepted from my boss. And there's others, though, that outside of that realm, I'm doing my best to pair off all the things that I'm committed to that are for someone else. It needs to be something that resonates with me. And it's actually this tough place of, I've said no, which people don't like to hear. Will you do this for me? No. I had that last week. We had a meeting and somebody said, would you do this? And I'm like, no, which is a complete sentence. I don't need to justify if it's going to be something I'm going to commit to. And that's kind of where I want to go with this next, is that, yes, it's great that you want to support the people around you. I'm definitely someone who comes from a place of service, for sure.
Me too.
But it has to resonate here. It has to resonate with the rest of me.
That's
But
right.
it's then taking it to this level where you're evaluating that commitment. Is it something that you're impassioned to do? Is it part of the core of who you are? That this is how you show up? Is this in an area of strength? Is this an area where you will bring the ultimate value of you to it? Rather than in a space where I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm smart enough, I'm not ready, etc. It's really a matter of coming to it from this place of maybe not quite ready. Yes, there's this go out on a limb to learn more and stretch for sure, but I am not going to ever commit to singing a song in public. I don't have the skills. I don't have the passion for it. People don't want to hear me sing in public.
I kind of do, but
but it's really kind of getting to this place where we're determining, is this something that I can give 100% to? It's one of Jack Canfield's first success principles, is own 100% of your life, and 100% is easy and 98% is hard. And I think that's another place where the fear of commitment comes up, is that if you're committed 98%, there's still that 2% question of, should I do this? Am I really all in? Am I giving my best to this? Will I give my best to this? And if we are battling that in ourselves, it's not a commitment. You're interested in the outcome. Commitment to me is 100% thing. You may need to renegotiate that commitment sometime down the line, but I do my best not to commit to something unless I know I'm going to be 100% in, not 98%, not 105% either. I can't give 105% of me. There's only one of me. I can't give more than I have to give, but I'm also not going to hold back. So, and that's where the discernment comes from, is choosing, this is where I'm committing to. And
Michael, what are your principles for discerning if something is right for you or not? Like, do you have standards, or what is your decision-making process like to determine if you should be committed to something or not?
So there's a couple things that I go through. One, it has to feel right. I mean, it's something that they talk about right now, is that many of these decisions actually don't come from the rational process. Many times it comes from a visceral state, if you want to call it the spirit or your instinct or your intuition,
or your
is the original spidey senses, whatever that tingle that happens that says yes or no. Exactly. You kind of then it's a matter of saying, okay, why does this feel right? Why does this feel like this? It's almost justification after the decision.
That's good. That's like a backstop process. It feels right. Okay, let's double check why.
Right. And then it's a matter of then testing is, does this actually match what my mission is on this planet? Is it in alignment with that? And it can be a spark of interest, but that spark can go out just as quickly as it started. So it's a matter of listening and then evaluating and saying, is it something that's actually related to illegal drugs? Not interested. That's not something that I am actually in support of. It's not something I'm going to put my energy and effort into. Even if it's marijuana, which right now is legal in most of the states here in the United States, it's not something that I partake in. It's not something I'm going to backstop. It's not in alignment with who I am. Is it for other people? Awesome. I'm not going to judge you. That's your thing. It's not for me. Is it going to be refining intentionally authentic leaders? That's my personal mission. Is it in alignment with that? Awesome. I'm all in. If it's not, if it's about serving victims, that also doesn't resonate with me. It may resonate for other people. So it's kind of coming back to what we talked about a little while ago, is what are your values? I know where I can actually serve the best because of where I've been through and what I feel excited about going forward. So it's got to be in alignment with those.
Yeah. So it's alignment with your purpose, your mission. Again, and guys, this is like a very fast process, because once you know who you are and you have that self-awareness, this isn't something like, oh gosh, she's like making a 3-day commitment decision-making process, right? No, like eventually this is laser. Yes, this is such a quick process. So that's great to know that you have this criteria. But not all of us can be force forward all the time. And there are many of us out there, and notice I said us, that there are areas where commitment, it triggers something, right? And we've something's happened, in our lives that causes us to just stop. And, you can't talk about commitment without going deep enough to talk about disappointment, fear, failure even, right? It brings up a lot of heat and a lot of emotion for so many people. So
Absolutely. And I've got experience in that too.
yeah.
So I was married to my daughter's mother, and I feel like I ended that relationship too early, that there could have been more. That marriage being one of those big legal and emotional and spiritual commitments, if you will. So much so that when I got married a second time, it dragged long after it became toxic for both of us because of that pain of not following through on a commitment, because I thought I cut out too early the first time. By the second time, it actually dragged on way too long and actually hurt more people in the process. So I get this triggering aspect of it, is that it's why now I take myself through more of a process of, is this involved in where I'm going? Is this involved with what I feel in myself? And it's not a woo-woo thing. Well, maybe it is, but it's a visceral feeling that I get personally. And I know for other people, they feel it differently. And not saying that my way is the only way. That's what I use now. Heck, I've made a decision 15 years ago that I didn't listen to that gut visceral feeling, and it destroyed most of my life at the time. So what was I committed to then? And so that I have had this recoil effect of, okay, time to reset everything, because what I was doing then certainly didn't serve me then. So how do we get to this place where commitments are okay, though, is kind of what I'm saying, is that if you have this triggering response, how do you move to the next step? Is there a next step? So
I feel like connection's a big part of that, like who you're connected to.
Like who? Is there someone in your life that kind of resonates with, Layla?
I think I was just thinking of like the accountability piece that you mentioned earlier, that people that really know my core, know my values, if I'm up against a big decision. It's funny because it was before you mentioned it, when you were talking about the discernment process. I was like, this sounds like a way to choose a mate, and it was kind of interesting that you brought up it just so vulnerably. And I appreciate the gut level honesty, is that those huge, that's a quick decision, or a one decision that has a long-term effect as far as picking that. But, surrounding ourselves with people that know our core, like for me, that know my core, that can kind of serve as a checks and balances when I'm up against a decision, whether it's a personal, professional, or intimate relationship. I guess that's all I was kind of thinking along that wavelength.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. And that's, Michael, when you were talking about that, you were talking about the external commitment, but really it was how it related to your internal values. And that's why sometimes we stay, right? Or we stay too long. And this stuff can get tricky, guys, right? You make an external commitment, you want to be faithful and loyal to your commitment. And then you realize, somewhere along the line, I've fallen away from maybe my highest and greatest good. And it causes us to take that moment and step back and reflect on what that is. There are, I believe, in each day, and really so many times a day, those moments of decision making where we can choose to take those steps towards our core values, towards the commitments we make. And when we don't, that little disappointment we feel, guys, society will minimize that disappointment. Society will tell you, it's okay. It's totally fine. But when we become numb to those little feelings, they go away. And then we repeat it. And yet the next time we don't feel that small disappointment, we don't feel it as much, and it gets easier and it gets easier. And that is the slippery slope that so many of us fall down and wake up and realize I am 45 degrees away from my trajectory. How did I get here? This was not my mission. This was not my vision. This was not the life I was committed to living. What am I doing here? Right? And how many of us wake up with that sense of how did I get here? I don't belong here. And Michael, you were kind of going there, but you kind of skipped over it, where you've had a moment or two in your life where you realized you don't belong here. There was someone more that you have to be, that you were meant to be, that you are. And this is about stepping up and committing to our highest identity. Right? So we have so many choices in this amazing world, in this amazing life. But it is those daily micro decisions that we can become completely numb to that can completely change the scope of our life. And what society won't tell you, that I will because I love you, is that those micro disappointments are betrayal. Because deep inside you betrayed your values. Deep inside you betrayed a commitment. And we can minimize it as much as you want. And sometimes, it is a little white lie or whatever it is. But guys, stay awake, stay self-aware. Because when you have what Michael had said, ownership, when you're taking ownership of your life and your direction, of your career, your finances, your personal growth, your identity, your relationships, that's a path of accountability. And in that path, those little disappointments, those micro betrayals, you'll know that they matter too. And so if you find yourself, where you're disappointed like that, how are you going to, what's the pivot that brings you out? Michael, when you are having those issues, when you say, I've caught myself again, what's the path out? What's the path through that fear of commitment or that stagnation that happens when you let yourself down?
So at least for me so you kind of mentioned that when that commitment isn't followed through on, what you were alluding to a lot is that there is a consequence for that. Mm-hmm. And that consequence is as much internally as it is externally. And how I took what you said there is that if one of your core values is reliability and you continuously let yourself down, that no longer feels like a core value anymore. And it really starts to erode things like self-confidence. If in me, it certainly does. It erodes the sense of self, the momentum, the motivation to do anything, let alone that thing that I committed to. So it does come from this place of the word that comes to mind, which I'm just going to spit it out, is that there's this forgiveness process that is necessary. And it's not forgetting. It's not saying that it's okay. It's that this is what I did. This is why it happened in some ways. It's kind of doing, to not make it overly critical, it's like an after action review. It's like, okay, this led to that happening. How do I keep that from happening the next time? It is a learning process. It's a learning about how I show up, a learning about what triggers me, what is my saboteur, if you will, that has led me to that space. And then if I'm going to elevate between this game versus the next game, or this meeting versus that meeting, I've got to do that review and say, okay, this is how I showed up. This is the results I got. This is the feeling I had in that moment. Is that what I want? And if not, my actions need to be different. I need to show up differently. So I get an opportunity to do a couple of things. One is there's the 6-phase meditation is one of the big ones that I tend to use, which one of those phases is forgiveness, which sometimes is forgiving others, but more often for me, it's forgiving myself, which has been harder. And having that conversation with myself from a day ago or an hour ago and saying, okay, what was that? And then forgiving it and moving forward. But there's also then this opportunity as well is I don't want to live in the past. I also need to project into the future, is that when I come up against that situation next, visualizing how I want to show up differently. Because when we play it out in our mind, they've proven that doing something while you're visualizing it has almost as much impact as actually physically doing it in the world.
That's
it
right.
rewrites the neural pathways.
Yeah.
So that's for me. Whenever I do fall down on those commitments, that's what I go through for that. And I've had to train for it the last few years, because it wasn't something that I did 10, 15, 20 years ago. It was completely out of my head. And now I'm much more aware of that.
And guys, forgive yourself, right? Like you can't. So, and where Michael hinted on was the neuroscience aspect, where nerves that wire together fire together. And so as we repeat thoughts, we're actually wearing like a neural pattern. And it's easier to have those thoughts, and those recurring thoughts come quicker, and almost automatic, until suddenly we've programmed ourselves into a negative pathway. If you're always beating yourself up, if you're always remembering where you fell down, instead, we want you to really see yourself taking that action that you may have fallen, behind on before. And it's through that action that you're going to really be able to overcome. And for me, I believe in kind of an active forgiveness, where instead of just, saying you forgive yourself, and Tina, you mentioned this before in the chat, which I loved, is keeping the promises to yourself. And so, Michael, you had talked about starting with baby steps to build that confidence about. And I think that was your other part of your process, wasn't it?
So certainly for me, kind of, yes. I think we talked about that probably yesterday or earlier today. But this, when I felt like the bigger things that I'm committing to, that I'm actually dropping the ball more often, is I've got to pare it back. Pare it back to something that I can succeed at, because I also know that I actually lose, once again, motivation, self-assurance, confidence, etc., whenever it's failure after failure after failure on those commitments. To the point now that I'm actually working through a process of a book called The One Thing. Is what is the one thing you can do right now that make everything else easier or obsolete? I used to be the person that had 12 things on my to-do list. That's the 12 things that I was working on. Well, then what? 3 get done? 9 get done? But instead, if you're focusing on that one thing in this aspect of your life right now, you give 100% focus to that, we're far more efficient, far more successful, and far more fulfilled, rather than trying to be the multitasker, which, depending on the study you look at, most of them say is BS, that we really don't multitask. We context switch quickly, but it's like running around in circles again. You're going here and then here and then here and then here and here. You've now actually, you're no farther than you were for the original place that you wanted to, versus if you take one step and then one step and then one step and then one step in a direction, you're going to get a heck of a lot farther. So it is then taking, because I've got some pretty big goals that I want to actually accomplish in my life. And the Lifebook process very much challenges you to have a big goal of what you want to do in the next 3 to 5 years, certainly. But in order to get there, I've got to take the small step and then take another small step and another small step and celebrate the wins along the way. Because otherwise, I know for me, I shut down. I stop committing. I stop moving. I stop growing. And I start failing. I start dying in the process.
Yeah. And when we were talking about this, Michael, exactly on that point, using those baby steps to build confidence, to build momentum, right, guys? And then eventually this stuff is going to become automatic. And because your confidence will be built up, you can take on bigger steps. You can take on bigger commitments. That will become flow for you. However, what you kind of hinted at too was this continuous process. So, and you had mentioned this before in our conversation, where commitment is not just about the initial decision, it's also about the follow through, guys. So how many of you have ever started a project and didn't finish it? And of course, because I'm a stubborn redhead, I'll say yet. But because I'm not done. That's like one of my phrases. We'll save that for another story, is I'm not done, and I'm still here. So, but I think that there's something in this, guys. Michael, what is happening when you commit to something and you don't finish it?
So a fair amount of it for me is looking at, so is this really what I'm committed to? It's a matter of reevaluating that. And if I need to get it across the finish line, if I need to actually get that to that experience or to that emotion, it's then either choosing not something else to focus on this, or it's a matter of renegotiating that commitment. It's one of those pet peeves for me, is that a no-show for someone to meet me, no-show for myself, even, if I just don't show up, is very different than saying, this isn't going to happen now, but it will happen at this time and not later. I've gotten into the practice now that if I put something on my calendar of something I'm going to do, I don't delete it and I don't ignore it. I move it to somewhere else. So it is committed to another time, because to me, that's a renegotiation, not that you're failing on it. It's a matter of being intentional with, this is not going to get done now, but it will get done later. Or, like I was mentioning with the one thing, something else actually makes it obsolete, because you've actually now accomplished something that's actually of higher value to accomplish whatever the core purpose of what that commitment was about in the first place. So it can get into a slippery slope there. So it's really about, kind of, if we circle back a little bit, it's about really choosing what your commitment is about, not what your commitment is why are you committing to that? Why are you committing to that spiritual practice? Why are you committing to that workout routine? Why are you committing to that meeting with someone? What's the core thing underneath that you're looking to accomplish? What's the result you're looking to have? Is it inner peace? Is it happiness? Is it conflict? What are you committed to specifically for that? And then whatever action you're going to take, even if it is nothing, knowing that it's actually, are you getting to the result of what you're aiming for? It's one of the things that I learned on the men's team quite a bit. We would actually have a process called a CPRA, context, purpose, results, and action plan. And many times the conversation was the agenda gets thrown out when the results get met anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's understandable. If mission is accomplished, it doesn't matter by hook or crook or how you got there, right? The fact that it gets done. But like, so there's something else though that you're not accounting for that's very real in people's lives. And I don't want us to skip over that, is what happens when you start something and you don't complete it. And it's not because it's not in your heart. It's because you lost faith in yourself.
Or lost faith in the commitment.
Or yourself, or your ability to accomplish it, Michael. Have you ever doubted your ability to accomplish something?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's keep it real for people, because this does happen, where for all heart and good intentions, we want something. We want it badly. But what happens when our confidence fades? And absolutely, guys, yeah, we end up letting ourselves down. So what's happening there? And would you say somebody is less committed if they're less confident, Michael?
That's a tough call, to be totally honest.
Tough call. This is where I wanted to get real.
So is somebody, if they're not confident about it, then not committed? In some ways, confidence is not something that I believe comes before the commitment.
Guys, did you catch that?
Courage, maybe, but not necessarily confidence. There, I can tell you several things that I've committed to with not knowing how I was going to get there.
Yeah.
Confidence is sometimes about the how.
Yes.
When courage is about the why.
Courage can be about the how to, not committing because you're afraid you don't know how to get there. But yes, guys. So here's the hard thing. I don't think anyone else will say. Maybe fear is not, you can't say you're more committed to achieving whatever your objective is if you're going to obey fear. If you're going to allow fear and doubt to get in your way, then you're actually more committed to fear and doubt than you are your objective. And I told you I'm the hard one. Like, I think Michael's shaking his head, but the truth is, fear and love do not coincide. And sometimes, guys, it's just not about you. Sometimes, especially for those of us who are mission driven, sometimes it's about getting out of your own way because the mission must be served. The goal must be accomplished. And the fact that you're afraid or you don't know how, it doesn't matter. That's where faith comes in. That's where your beliefs come in. And all of those other beautiful, deep subjects that Michael and I have been talking about all year. You cannot have two masters. You could, but what's going to happen? You're not going to go anywhere.
Torment.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. So what are the signs that we see when people are not committing? What are the kind of the symptoms? Michael, you and I had discussed this a little bit.
Blame shifting.
Oh, yes. Blame shifting. What else, guys? Stagnation. We see people who aren't growing.
Busyness.
Oh, busyness is another one. It's a great place to hide.
What is your question again, please?
What are the signs and symptoms when people are not committing in their lives? how does that show up? And we've had busyness, we've had blaming others,
Disappointment.
disappointment.
Bushbinder, did you have something?
Yeah, sorry, I joined late, but just wanted to throw out, has anyone considered that a lack of commitment could also be indicative of, you're not seeing outcomes that you had originally planned? And sometimes it's okay to not do anymore because proceeding along that vector will not get you to your mission. Would that be fall in the swim lane of realignment, because you're no longer committing to do A because you found a better, easier, more effective path B?
Yes, or you realize that's a dumb idea. I was totally committed to something, but it's not feasible,
True. Yeah.
And that does happen, guys. And we're not saying that the universe is conspiring against you, for sure. In my line of belief, I believe that those dead ends, if you do clearly meet a dead end, are simply, call it God, the universe, whatever you want, redirecting you.
Mm-hmm.
Redirecting you to your potential, redirecting you to where you're meant to be. But usually with a lot of diligence and things, it's things will happen. And then, Pushpinder, in that moment though, I would also take that kind of matrix moment where everything stops, and I would look at, what can I learn and grow from this experience? What is the world and my life experience teaching me that I pursued a dead end? And I would really call for that moment of reflection where, okay, what are the things I had overlooked? And Michael's great about this too, talking about that due diligence, that kind of after action report. Oh, whether it's a startup, that idea that didn't work, or a relationship that was never going to happen, right? Guys, this is universal. These are like the universal laws of success we're playing with. And I believe it's endless in that creation. Does that resonate? Yeah.
And Suzanne, kind of just to close my thought about that, pivoting. I heard this in a podcast last year. It wasn't a podcast, it was one of the Zoom meetings. And the guy said something pretty profound. He said, experiment often and fail fast.
Yes. Baby, agile is the way. That's really
good.
Yeah,
and that was so refreshing, because I'm a small business owner. For me, I have to constantly pivot, because if I just keep doing the same thing, I'm going to just crash and burn, and the company shuts down. So pivoting is part of the game, but that the whole notion of experiment but quickly fail is so crucial. But then again, I always sort of tell myself I'm resilient. I have the will to the way I keep myself motivated is I will start after 100 people have stopped trying. I will start at that point and still continue. But at the same time, you also have to have that wisdom to know that, hey, you could convert that into a project that you're pursuing with DoD, or with something in a relationship, or anything between those two. You also have to have that logical part that overcomes your emotional side and says, it's time to call time out.
That's right. And I believe, guys, if we are truly in tune with our higher wisdom, I believe those logic and emotional parts, they come together to form a sense of intuition that is so much faster. And that's how we're able to process these commitments and decisions, just in a millisecond, because that comes together. And that's where you get that analytical skill and agility that is also intuitive, highly intuitive.
The thing that keeps coming to my mind is trial and error. And it's been coming for the last couple of minutes, is trial and error. Is that what you're talking about here?
It can be.
So experimentation is certainly part of that trial and error process, for sure. But one thing I want to kind of come back to what Pushpinder was saying is that trial and error is great if you know what result you're looking to achieve.
Yeah.
And to me, the commitment is towards the result, not to the actions you're taking to get there.
Yeah.
So if you want to grow your business, if you're committed to that, then you will go through several different trials in order to accomplish that. That's the commitment I'm talking about, is that your business will succeed, that you'll have a loving relationship, that you will have spiritual peace in your life. That is more some of those internal commitments that we're talking about, rather than I commit to walk down the street at 5 miles per hour and take a left after 1 mile. You could fail at that. That would be a trial and error if there's construction on the road. But what I'm getting at is that trial is necessary. Experimentation is necessary, so you know what the result is. What I'm really focused on for me is commit to the result you want to accomplish, and then do as many trials as it takes to accomplish the result.
Copy. And Michael, you kind of hit it on the head. A lot of times we focus on the word commitment with the process and not so much with the outcome. And I think the latter is more important. Focus on the outcome, not the result. I think I again read this somewhere. A lot of companies, a lot of institutions, a lot of things are based on results. But I mean, you look at outcome as a much higher level. So what happens? If you say committed on the outcome versus the process, because the process is not going to work every time, so you have to change it.
That's right. And Pushpinder, you might like this. I've heard this in one of my monitoring and evaluations course. My background is also international development and global conflict. And we called it methodolatry, where you make the method a religion, right? You're focusing on the how instead of the outcome. Mm-hmm. So there's idolatry in religion, and there's methodolatry in business, where you're so committed to the how that you're forgetting about the end result, and the how doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So very cool.
Are the results the same as outcome? I have that question. Can you clarify that?
So for me, I would think that they are similar. It's slightly different words for the same thing. For me, I would actually use the term results for that. It sounds like Pushpinder's using the outcome similar versus the steps to get there. Like if you've got like Suzanne was talking about, is the method that you need to do is these are the 5 steps to get there. And we have to keep doing these 5 steps until we get the result. Well, if the 5 steps are going the wrong direction, do you commit to the steps, or do you commit to the outcome that you're looking for those steps to create?
Can
Go ahead, John.
Something.
Sure.
I watched a few videos on should we focus on the goals or should we focus on the system? And I committed to focusing on the system. In other words, for planning my day the night before, and then deciding what I'm going to do that day. And so I get daily rewards because I do what I committed to do for that day. And I don't concern myself about the goal, because these daily steps will take me to the fulfillment of my goals, and I get rewarded every day.
Yes. And I actually, we're not anti-systems people, definitely. I love that, because there's a discipline in that. There's a system of discipline in that is guiding you to a process where you're almost building a muscle memory that will, if you follow those steps, they automatically kind of lead you towards that goal. So I see no conflict with that, but I do understand the words that we're using may seem like that. But yes, absolutely. Like the process, we're all figuring that out, what works best for us. But it sounds like, John, that you kind of are focusing only on systems that lead you to a direction. And that direction is what we're just talking about, the focal point being.
Well, I've got a few different projects that are important to me. And so daily deciding, okay, what project what project or projects am I going to work on today? And I like to think in terms of dedicated productive time. How much time am I going to set today for productive hours so that I do what is important to me, what I'm passionate about, what I want to in time achieve. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to develop a mindset that in other words, I've lived so long without a structured day that now I realized, hey, if I don't have a structured day, I'm going to have a wasted day.
That's right. Welcome to you and the rest of the world during COVID.
Yeah.
But here's the discernment that I want to make here is you still have 3 projects that you're committed to, things that you want to have as an end result, and you have a system in order to get you there. Now, you're currently committed to that system that would accomplish that. If I were to bring to you something that would actually make that system take half as much time and get you twice as many results, would you say, no, my system's important. I have to keep my system. If you can get the more results in less time. That's more kind of what I'm talking about as far as the discernment. Systems are important. I'm a tools guy. I build tools for a living right now. That's what I get paid my salary for, is building tools. So I'm all about systems and doing that. But I'm also of the mindset that those systems need to evolve for what the outcome is based on new technology, new mindset, new heart set, new soul set when they come up.
Do you think that maybe some of this, like I'm hearing what John is saying, and I kind of get the gist of what he's saying. It's kind of like when John and Missy talk about, and obviously that's a different program. But my point is that when they talk about the 12 sacred choices, they develop into habits. So at some point, they no longer become like the system in your mind because they become integrated in who you are and what you do, sort of like getting up in the morning and brushing your hair and brushing your teeth and all that stuff, right? So it's what I hear John saying, though, is in a sense like his system is sort of like when you build a house, you have to put a foundation down and the structure, the outer structure of the house and all that. And at some point you forget about that, but it's not less there. It's still there and it's needed. So once the system is in place, then you don't have to think about it as much. And then, like you said, Michael, when you get an opportunity to refine your system or to make it more, more effective and more productive, perhaps, or more efficient, I guess is the right term, efficiency. Sometimes that comes from within, from the spirit or the intellect or so on, so that as you're doing something for quite a while, and as you learn and grow from within, you begin to see, oh, there's a better way, or I don't need to spend as much time on this anymore because I've learned a different way to do it, that sort of thing. So that's what I kind of see where John's coming from. For him, the system's necessary for now. And eventually it becomes a habit and it becomes invisible to him, but not less important and not less meaningful and not less there.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
That's well said. Love it. Guys, is there a commitment you've been holding back on that you need to make? Or is there a commitment you're knee deep in that you're questioning your own sanity?
Can you have both?
Yeah, I usually do, right? For those of us who are, have big goals. I know many of you have big goals. And, I really think if your commitments don't scare you, they're not big enough. If they don't frighten you and excite you, we do need like some excitement, not pure fright, because I'm not, but really, they should scare you a little, and that's okay. So
As Pushpinder said, it's as Tina just said, is reevaluating is, yes, you may have commitments you need to let go of because they were made at a time with knowledge you had at that moment and the tools you had at that moment. They're now obsolete for whatever reason that is. And then it's an opportunity to automate, delegate, or eliminate those in some way. Because it's one of my biggest challenges, as Suzanne said earlier, is I tend to overcommit because I want to put the world on my back and save everyone. So I can overcommit easily. But I know that I am not the right person to assist, support, and guide everyone. It's so part of what I do with my own personal practice, as well as what I do when I'm coaching people, is like this question of what are you doing that you should leave to someone else? And what are you leaving to someone else that you need to be doing? No one can work out for me. It just doesn't work. The exercise needs to be my own. Massage helps, certainly, when someone else is helping manipulate, but no one can actually go to the gym for me. No one can go for a walk for me. So that I need to commit to doing for myself. But like one of the things for me is that I enjoy coaching. Marketing, not so much. That's not my area of strength. And it's a matter of letting that go enough to not super control that, not micromanage that, is that there's people that I need to leave that to. So thank you, Layla. So my question to you is what is that part that you are holding with an iron fist that you're hanging on to that it's time to let go of, that thing that you've internally committed of, I have to be the one to do it, and it's time for me to let it go? Is there something like that?
Guys, for those of you that this is your first time here, when we reach kind of the hour mark, we really love to just shut up. This is your time. This is your session too. We're here for you. So if you have anything that any thoughts you want to share on commitment and ways that, commitment has either held you back or has made you even stronger. I know my commitment to show up with Michael has been a beautiful commitment for me. We do this once a month and we talk about our lives. We go there where very few people go. We are not perfect beings, and we share where we've been along on our journey. And sorry if you showed up looking for the most enlightened beings, but our job is to keep it real and to help people in their journey.
Suzanne, can I say something? This is my first time, so I'm so glad I joined. And it's good to see you after so many years. I probably met you at a conference in Buncombe County, Western North Carolina.
Absolutely.
I think it's close to maybe 10 years ago or so. But I think the one thing I want to sort of state is, we often confuse commitment with goals. And again, I am not even saying that right. I think we need to do a better job of finding out so what or then what.
Yes.
You don't look at a Rolls Royce not as a symbol of a transportation, but of something else. Making a statement. Similarly, look at your goal as something that'll give you peace of mind, sleep better, those basic things that every human being needs. once you distill it to that level, then to Michael's point, you can go in any direction. You don't have to go left, right to get there. You can also go up, down, left, right, and still get there. Because now in your mind, in your soul, you have that distilled vision of what that goal looks like. And I like to call it as an outcome. Because a lot of times, unless you're tracking something, you're not measuring something. It's like your weight or your speed. Someone once told me that if you want to run a business, you should have an athlete's mindset.
Yeah.
You completed that in 10 seconds, 0.3. If you've not shaved 1.5 seconds or not, like 15%, you're not doing better. If you've not shaved another 20%, you're not doing better. It's so hard to track that in your business. And it's okay for you to do it, but to tell other people, oh, it was the same thing last week or last month. How are you getting better? So it's a lot easier to sell that when you talk about outcomes versus those things. And I'm just throwing that out because I struggled with asking someone the same question, like, why is it taking the same time when you've been doing this for 14 straight weeks?
That's right. And so, but the key is you're asking questions along the way. And guys, this is the hard work. Like for some people, the commitment is it's difficult because there's a lot of fear behind it. With others, the commitment is the easy part because they know what they want, but then the follow through, that constant process along the way of monitoring the commitment you've made, being, hyper aware of the process you're using to achieve that commitment to get there, right? And that's what John was talking about. He's got these processes that are working for him, but they are with the goal in mind, these systems. And so that's up to us to have the self-awareness, to monitor, to be self-aware, to check in with how we're doing along the way. And to be frank, that part is not always fun, right? Whether it's your personal growth, whether it's your company, but those are the discipline areas. That is the going to the gym part, that is the showing up that has to happen repeatedly along the way. Definitely. Let's check in with our chat too. We wanted to thank you for being here today with us. Beautiful.
Thanks,
Absolutely. Anyone else? We want to keep it open for a second.
Yeah, one of the things I'm committed to is consecrated time, because I sense that the God connection is the most important connection in my life. And there's a verse in the Bible in the New Testament that says, as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. So the reason why I can have peace of mind is because of the God connection. There's a scripture that says, he will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him. Mm-hmm. So it's by maintaining the God connection, I can have peace of mind regardless of my circumstances in life. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of what I'm committed to. And I'm committed to actually becoming one with God. Mm-hmm. Because the Bible reveals how you can become one with God. And that's what I'm basically committed to the rest of my life to. Nice. And actually teaching others how to be one with God and accelerate the process of doing so.
Nice. See, mine's a little bit different. Mine is actually more the path of a Jedi, where focus is a matter of giving complete attention to that which is in front of me, which then builds to knowledge, and knowledge that is practiced leads to wisdom.
Okay.
So it's very similar words, but or similar concept, different words. So for me, that is the force. That is that which binds all of us together. That which actually flows through and out of me is that energy that's on the planet, that's in the universe. Mm-hmm. So each of us has our own path. And for us on this summit, it's a matter of, okay, so what's this one aspect we can actually take the piece out, take it apart, clean it up, put it back together, put it back in the machine, so that this machine is the spirit on a human journey can actually live a fulfilled and successful life.
Yeah.
I kind of like what John was saying, because I like what you're saying too, Michael. But I have an experience last year. I started an accountability group and I had to learn Zoom. And I was afraid to learn Zoom. And so I'm a religious woman and I believe in Jesus. And anyway, I heard God say to me, don't worry about it. I'll be right there. So as I'm sitting there on the computer, trying to learn Zoom, I got God in the seat next to me. I don't intend to try to become one with God, but I do intend to have him walk side by side with me. And so, it's like, okay, whisper in my ear, what do I have to do next? And so what it did for me was it brought me comfort, and it allowed me to be there in a sense of, without anxiety. And we all know that when kids are anxious, kids that live in abusive homes typically don't learn as well in school because they bring that anxiety with them and they can't concentrate. And so by having God in the seat next to me, in my own mind's eye, I was able to be comforted and so on. But, Suzanne, you mentioned something, you asked, what is before us? And I'm writing a book, and I know that it's something that I need to do to fulfill God's mission for me, but at the same time, in the past 3 years, I learned that I am empathic. And only more recently, I would say in the past couple of weeks, as I'm going back into my notes about what empathic means and that sort of thing, I'm actually able to look at 4 different traits of empaths that I have experienced in the past. And so, with that, I'm very afraid because I've also, I grew up in New Orleans. I lived in New Orleans for a good part of my life. New Orleans is a really old culture, has a lot of Africans and Haitians and people coming in from the Caribbean with the cultural voodoo, hoodoo, things. And I picked up some of that dark spirit feeling and felt haunted. And so I'm afraid, I've had because of trauma and tragedies in the past, I've had times when I wasn't able to act like you said, Michael, you get involved in this paralysis of analysis. But for me, what came before that is tragedy. And that's what caused the paralysis, because after you have pain and so much of it for so long, you're afraid, or I can't say you, but I was afraid to move on. And so that's kind of where I am now. With regard to my book, it's really safe for me to write it. I no longer care what other people think, because I really believe that it's going to really impact the people who are suffering, and it's really going to help. And I trust that that's what, my mission is. But at the same time, it's how do I protect myself from the otherworldly forces? Because I've had problems with that in the past. And it really caused me depression, suicide ideation. I know we're live, so hey guys, I'm no embarrassed or ashamed anymore, because I know a lot of people out there are dealing with this themselves. And I had to, my savior is God, because God, Jesus's name, when you speak the name of Jesus, the demons flee. And so I've had to rely on that. But
so with that empathic expression that you have, as an experience you have, I agree that faith is actually a huge light for that. I mean, heck, my mission is to shine light to the dark corners, to inspire trust and self-love. That's what I'm on this planet to do. So I very much agree with that. I would also look and find people who can help you filter that, because unfortunately, when we're actually blocking, when we put up walls, we block everything. I know this from personal experience. So if you can attach or connect with people who can actually train you in some of that. I'm a Reiki master as well. So that energy process is certainly something that is necessary. Once again, it's using terms that I think are universal, that we just have different ways to express it. If it is God, if it is chi, if it is the force, we all learn our tools in order to get there. Yeah. And the question that I really have around all that is, if you are committed to the light of that, then the rest doesn't matter
Exactly.
because you're committed to heading that direction. I see the light and I'm going there.
Yeah.
And then you find the tools to get you there.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it, Ramon.
You're welcome.
Couple of thoughts that came to my mind is the two words soul wounds. I picked up on that when you were talking, Michael, earlier. And when Ramona was talking, that's what keeps us imprisoned in our past. It's what causes a person who's been divorced, carries the soul wounds into the next relationship and ends up being divorced again. And then unless those soul wounds get healed, you remain stuck. And to heal the soul wounds, it requires forgiveness, and I don't know what else it requires.
Right. No, I think that's right. But I think it would require, though, to keep it in context of our conversation today, it would be a commitment to yourself to heal, to figure out the path, and to take the time that you need to take the steps and find what's going to work for you to heal, for sure. And that would be the case where somebody's more committed to being in a relationship than they are to healing, right? And that's why we see people moving forward with trauma and bringing the trauma into the next, or recreating the situation without, taking that time to heal. And
without doing the inner work. And that's
right.
I think really what the kind of wrap up that I wanted to do with this conversation is. We can make a lot of commitments externally, and that's what society really kind of focuses us on. But where we really get the most growth, the most success, the most fulfillment is when we're actually fulfilling the internal commitments. I commit to not bringing my trauma forward from the last relationship into the next. I choose to bring the best version of myself to my relationship. That's a commitment that I've actually made to my wife, and she knows it. And I do the work I need to in order to be there, to be the best husband for her. But I think that that's necessary. But it started with a commitment to me that then gets projected out, not the other way around, which is when we get back into the shoulding we talked about earlier.
Yeah, self-love is so essential.
Thank you for bringing this down to a real life state. I appreciate it,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate you engaging with us. That we like that kind of conversation, not just us talking and everybody listening. It really is a conversation for us. We appreciate the value you bring, your insight and your perspective, because I really do believe that this world is about various perspectives, and we grow by acknowledging that other people have their own and respecting it. It's not that my way is right and your way is wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. It's a matter of being aware that all these perspectives are from our point of view. And my commitment is to continue bringing conversations like this to the world, because both Suzanne and I believe that this is what's necessary for us to heal, for us to grow, for us to thrive on the planet.
Michael, is there a way of connecting with you on a more of a one-to-one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll actually reach out to you. Yep.
I believe Suzanne mentioned that she's also empathic, right? Is that right?
it's true.
Yeah, I'm writing my book, but as soon as I get that completed, I'll reach out to you as well.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here. We love seeing your faces. We're grateful for you, and we're here for you.
Can Michael answer my question about?
I'll reach out to you on the Lifebook platform, because I know that I've actually seen you on there. So I'll also send you my email address as well. So if you want to save the chat.
Oh, okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
So it's just Michael at Elevate Your Best is the easiest way to get a hold of me. So thank you everyone again for your time.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
And we're out.
Okay, thank you.